Hi, my name's Gaynor Evans, and I wrote a book a few years ago called Sex and the Signposts. I blog regularly under sexandthesignpost.com. But for a change, I thought I'd read a chapter from my book to see whether or not that would entertain you. So I hope you're entertained once you get to the end of it. I'm reading chapter 1. It's called Vomit and Vino. And I hope you enjoy it. Finding the underwear receipt under the bed had been rather cathartic. I knew there was someone else, but I hadn't been able to gather the evidence, my husband having put up so many smoke screens. I had been blinded, but I actually just knew. I was always checking his room, sniffing around like a bloodhound, looking for anything to indicate what he was up to. Now I'd found something tangible at last. Quickly checking over the size 34C bra and size 12 thong, Licenza, winter flock design. Oh, how sweet. The question is, who did it fit? There were two women under suspicion. Her who lived next door, or the woman that he walked the dogs with. Getting a mental picture of both women, I sat on the edge of the bed and turning the receipt over in my hand, I made a choice. It was definitely her next door. Whoopee! At last I could see now what I'd been feeling for months. Carefully replacing it exactly in the same place under the bed, I left the room smiling to myself. Sherlock Holmes had nothing on me. Now what to do with the information? As it was our son's 17th birthday, and he was having some friends to stay for a sleepover, my husband had decided to duck out. Heaven forbid that he should stick around to help clear up after 7 gangly teenagers. As always, it was left to me to deal with the sharp end, and he had taken himself off for the weekend. I decided that for now, I would keep my discovery to myself. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and I needed a game plan. Talking of games, I also had a date that evening. He wasn't the only one that could find solace in the arms of another, so there. I was going over to an old friend, or Flame's house actually, for dinner. We had known each other for years and had dated a little way back when, and there had been a bit of a spark. And as his wife had left him the year before, we had been out for dinner recently. I wasn't sure whether the spark was still alight and would rise like a phoenix from the ashes, or whether in fact we were just good friends. I knew his expectation at the end of this evening would be to take me to bed, and I had decided to give it a try. About time, I thought, although I was a bit rusty, and certainly more than a bit nervous, as I hadn't had many sexual partners, but fired up with the evidence of my husband's infidelity. A bit of revenge sex was just what the doctor ordered. My husband knew this man quite well and would hate the thought of it. That alone made it much more tempting. Plus, he had his own business and a nice house, and at least he wanted to get my knickers off. Being a responsible parent, my intention was to be out quite late and to come home to make sure that the boys didn't set fire to the house or terrorise the neighbours, although I secretly hoped they would make loads of noise and keep a certain neighbour awake. So dressed up to the nines, I was delivered by my daughter to my date's house, and he had kindly agreed to drop me home at my convenience. We had spoken briefly on the phone, and I'd explained the reasons why I had to come home. He was fine about it, although I got the impression he wanted us to have a sleepover of our own. Of course, what he actually meant was that he wanted to take me to bed. I played my part and implied that I might be the dessert. I asked if I could bring anything like wine, and he said he had plenty, although, of course, he was on the wagon. In our earlier life, he had been a big drinker and had now given up. I remember thinking he was more fun as a drunk, but it was his lifestyle choice, and he had been ill recently. His lovely cottage was out in the sticks, beautifully decorated and well located. The man could be quite a catch if I was an opportunist. He welcomed me in and the smell of something good cooking in the oven wafted under my nose. My problem was that the revelations of the day had somewhat dulled my appetite. Plus, I was nervous, and the two things combined seemed to have filled up the space where my stomach used to be. He had gone to a lot of trouble. Beautifully marinated and slow-cooked lamb shanks and lots of fresh vegetables. Nothing else for it. I would just have to get drunk. He offered me wine, and I said yes, please. Unfortunately, the lots of wine he had told me about were all the white variety. My stomach and I prefer red. But beggars can't be choosers, so glass in hand, I started slugging it back. Glass 1, to make me stop getting a mental picture of her next door in the winter flock design. Glass 2, to settle my nerves. Glass 3, to help the food go down. And glass 4, because I'd forgotten I'd drunk the other 3. My host sat drinking the glass of water opposite me and seemed a little subdued, and then proceeded to tell me how his last romance went tits up. Time for glass 5. I forced as much food down as I could, and we left the table and retired to the TV room, where we sat side by side on his seduction sofa. I imagine that this sofa had been utilised this way many times before. He had kindly opened another bottle of wine for me, so my glass seemed to be full again. Oh well, it would be rude not to drink it, so down went glass 6. He was still on water, and there we sat, him talking and me slurring in front of one of the biggest flat-screen televisions I'd ever seen. Halfway through glass 7, the kissing started. By now, I was more than 3 parts to the wind and knew that the bedroom was beckoning. He was keen, eager and sober. I was just sozzled. "Shall we go to bed?" he said almost straight away. Ah, the foreplay was over then. I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will read you the rest of chapter 1 another time. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care. Bye.